Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Mike DeHaan and Dan Austin. From wins, losses, horror stories, and tactics for optimizing your business, Mike and Dan take a real, uncensored deep dive into the ins and outs of running a full-time real estate investment and wholesaling business.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 24 of the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm back from Costa Rica. I was traveling last week, so Dan was holding down the ship.
Yeah, you're fresh off the boat, man.
Fresh off the boat. I don't know if that's like a derogatory thing to say.
No.
Are you say
like
that?
I don't know. Is that? I guess I never thought about it that way.
Well, actually, I guess I don't know, because I guess if you say that about a person, it can be. But there was also like a ABC show or like a network show that was about like a Filipino family that I think
like a Tyler Perry show. So
yeah,
it's super
like
good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That was called that.
Right.
I was down there for a week with my wife. Traveled around. We were in the rainforest area. We had a bunch of hikes and all sorts of random stuff there. And it's crazy how like full of life that area is. That was one thing that I definitely noticed compared to other places I've been. Like Hawaii was it's not humid like Hawaii, which I was really surprised by since it's the rainforest. And also, there's so many freaking animals, like everywhere.
Like animals, like creatures, or both?
Like animals, like creatures, or both.
You know, like lizards and like snakes. Like what are you talking? Reptiles? What are we talking about?
I'm talking that. I'm talking monkeys. I'm talking like mammals. Birds, like cool birds though, like toucans and parrots and all.
I could hear them on their Zoom calls, man. They're all over the place. That was pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. We were one of the places we stayed. We were woken up by howler monkeys at 5 a.m. every single morning. The second there's like a tiny hint of sun, they all just start going off, marking their territory for the day. And then sitting back on our little back deck of our little Airbnb cabin, as soon as the sun would like start to go down, like the bugs just started raving. And, like it was so unbelievably loud, like to the point that we were, I don't know, probably 400 or 500 yards from the trees, like the edge of the trees, and we like had to speak to each other louder than before because the bugs were so freaking loud. It's
like a white noise machine, like my daughter sleeps with.
Yeah, seriously. Honestly though, it was crazy. Yeah, and then this the it's so consistent there. The temperature, none of the houses have like any form of insulation or heat or air conditioning or anything. And like, so it's almost like you're always outside, because when you walk into the house, it's exactly the same as it is outside. And then because the none of the house have any insulation, you can hear everything outside of the house super clear. So one of the places we stayed in La Fortuna, which is the one that was right along the rainforest, all night, dude, like animals and shit like walking on the roof. Like
on the roof,
lizards, like the roof of our thing, or like on the walls. If there were like lizards going, you could like hear them like scurry. And the first night we were like, what the hell, are there like mice in here? And they weren't, because there was nowhere for them to be. Man. And then afterwards we figured out that there was like lizards and stuff that were like just crawling. You could hear their like little pitter patter feet go.
Oh, great.
Your
wife loved that. I know she likes lizards. My wife wouldn't have been super keen on that.
Oh, she loved all the animals. And then one of the nights, there was something obviously big that was on our roof. It wasn't like a little thing. I don't know if it was like a little mammal marsupial or what, like going around, and then it was like pulling stuff around on the deck. Like we could hear it. Like, and we're like, what is like, it's like camping, but with, there's nothing really to be
with Wi-Fi
for like dangerous animals with Wi-Fi. Yeah. But it's funny, but you're in like a house, but it just felt so wild compared to other places I've been.
That sounds awesome. Amazing, actually. Like just different, right? Unique. I've definitely never been to Central America. It is crazy, not the same part of the area, but like you talk about rainforest. This is such a weird tangent. Sorry to any of our listeners, but the deforestation of like the rainforests down in like South America, and like they're uncovering like these civilizations that were like super I don't know what you'd say, like modernized civilizations, and like places in the world that just nobody ever knew existed because the rainforest was so thick and dense, but now they're deforesting it and creating all sorts of other issues. But it's pretty amazing.
Yeah it really is. And it's like a different level that you don't really see around here, I think, because we just have such a presence everywhere. I mean, you kind of get it a little bit if you go up to like Idaho, you know, in those sort of areas. But I think the difference was just how full of life this area seemed. I mean, because you can go march around wherever in Idaho, and the forest feels pretty empty unless you really look. Like, you'll see birds and stuff, but this, you know, all the hikes and everything, there was just constant animals everywhere.
Yeah, dude, because America will shoot your ass if you freaking bird flying around. You're gonna get slapped with a bullet.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay.
We have guns, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. They definitely don't have a more of a respect towards nature vibe down there. Because that was the other thing too that was really interesting, was super clean. You know, again, I did like no research before we went there. We're just like, let's go to Costa Rica. People go there, and we literally just flew down with no real plan. But super clean country. Like, they are very religious about their recycling. You know, about like minimizing waste, like doing all this sort of stuff. And I thought that was pretty cool, right? I guess especially because I know some of those countries down there that are a little bit rougher around the edges. You know, their people have so many issues that they really don't care about what's going on with the wild. They're trying to not die. But Costa Rica benefits enough from tourism, I think, that doesn't have those same problems. But.
Right. Yeah. Well, sounds like a good trip either way. Did you have any epiphanies, as you typically do when you travel? Any ahas?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the biggest ahas I sort of had, you know, because you stayed here and you were managing the ship, but you know, it's funny, you quickly realize how, like, it's from my end, how much my fingers are kind of in all sorts of stuff, because, you know, several times, you know, our guys will listen to this too, but they were like, reach out to me, and I'm like, go freaking ask Dan or ask each other. Like, you know, I don't, you know, like, you guys know what you're supposed to do. You know the answers to these questions. Yeah. And even a lot of time I would be like, I don't know, what do you think? You know, just like, go. Yeah. And so that, like, I realized that there's some work that we have to do to sort of systemize stuff a little bit better and help limit that. And then in terms of like bigger picture epiphanies, I mean, we've been dealing with this marketing situation, and I had a few thoughts with that about sort of maybe one of our recent issues have been, particularly with how our most recent ones have flopped. Like, we've had a couple marketing campaigns now that were, you know, just went out and just didn't hit how we expected. And I had a couple epiphanies about why that might have been. Some of it's from feedback based off of people that did respond, and some of it is from actually something that my wife said, which I thought was kind of interesting, where she was like, you know, saying we've had this less response. Then we had this one person reach out and was like, hey, I've received these different offers from you that are super wildly different. Like, what gives? Yep. And Madison's like, oh, you probably turned into spam. It's like, you know, she's like we get ads here that when they first came, we looked at them, and now we don't even open them because we recognize what they are, and we're just like, oh, I don't even want to engage with that anymore. And I was like, that's probably some truth to that, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna work on a slightly reduced down marketing structure that we'll kind of go over in-house this week. That was a pretty big epiphany I got business-wise. And then something else that, especially the last few trips I've done, you know, I went to Egypt in October. I went out to Costa Rica, which are, you know, Egypt's like a third world country for sure. But Costa Rica isn't, but it's still just like a simpler country. Mm-hmm. And I always come back after trips like that. I'm like, I went to Costco today, and I was just like walking around, and you always just look at things a little bit different. And I'm like, none of these people should bitch about anything in their lives.
It's like, so much easier than people like to think. Yeah.
You know, because like even down there, it's a decently established country, but the local people that aren't in the big cities, they're living in these little makeshift shacks. Like, they're living super simple lives. They do not have a lot. And the people that we met that were local, that owned like little restaurants and stuff like that, they were the nicest, happiest people. Right. You know, and it was the same thing in Egypt, but Egypt on like a different level because it was so poor. And, you know, in Costa Rica, there was definitely some more stability you felt amongst the people. But I know I always come back and I'm just like, you know, at one point my wife, we were going around and she's like, I always feel like when we go places like this that the United States is just doing it wrong. You know, because like sure, we have abundance, but it's like, you know, the people in general, it's just like, I don't know, man. Yeah. It gives you perspective. And I also think that's why it's super important for people to travel places like that, because it makes you reflect on that, and not enough people do it.
Definitely gives you an opportunity to see and what you're taking for granted every day, and things that maybe that you live in your life that you can maybe get rid of.
Totally.
You know, like that you don't need, or that you don't need that stress in your life, because it's really not something that you're worried about when you get that unique perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and it teaches you to be happy with the little things that you have.
Yeah.
You know, for things that you generally take for granted, it's like maybe you probably shouldn't do that, because it probably is a lot better than what most people have access to.
I mean, I'm still buying a plaid mode, so it doesn't matter.
But yeah, so anyway, you were managing the ship while I was gone.
Yeah.
How'd it go? Any fun stories? I know we're a little bit slow.
Yeah, no, I mean, nothing crazy, just kind of dealing with some of those sellers that hang around that we're touching bases with, you know, and they're just kind of annoying type sellers, you know, that you're trying to stay in touch with, but they're like, I still want $1 million for my house. And you're like, well, you know, you come down a little bit, you know, it's that sort of stuff. Well, but, you know, so, I mean, but
we don't have too many like that. Cause when we get sellers that want like $1 million or their offers outrageous, we usually just let them go.
Yeah,
I think what we
the
have
ones
right
where
now
it is like close to like where we want to be, but you know they're still being stupid about it, and you know you're close enough to close the deal, they just are being illogical about it, right? So just kind of staying in touch, because I totally think that it's important to stay in touch with those sellers, because eventually they will sell, because they haven't sold yet. It's the, you know, the kind of sellers like, well, I have another offer in hand for this much. It's like, well, take it. That's actually a really good deal for you. But then you call them 3 months later and they haven't taken it. And so just that follow-up is obviously important, but that's kind of like we had a handful of those this week.
Yeah, and well, I think that's one of the reasons it's so important to pre-screen leads, though, as well, because it's always a fine line with those people if you haven't pre-screened them, right? Because you'll give them too much attention and it'll eat too much of your time for no reason. Yep. And, you know, but it's an easy trap to fall into. We fell into that a lot when we first started. I mean, how many people did we spend insane amounts of time with? Yep. Because we didn't really know what their house was worth or what we wanted to offer. But also, too, because we're like, well, they called us. They must actually want to have a conversation.
Right, or a logical conversation. And too, when you're first starting out, it's not even it's like you don't even have the backlog of leads to be following up with. So every lead coming in is, you have the time to follow up with them, right? Because they're the only leads in your system. But the minute you get, 100 leads within your system of follow-ups, plus another several hundred of just like dead leads that might come out of the blue and text you back or something like that. So you actually have a lot less time as you go, and so you really have to pre-screen. But you're right, don't waste your time on some of these people that just are being illogical.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the biggest advice I can give to people, because I think you're right. That's what we did when we were first starting out, was like, everything's a deal and we'll just negotiate it to the price we want.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, you think you're going to convince people to sell for 50% of what they're asking for, which generally is not going to be the case. I mean, it does happen, but it's not the norm. Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, this is something we tell everyone in our instant investor program as well, is that there's 4 leads. There's 4 kind of callers you're going to get, right? There's, yes, I want to sell my house. That's the best one. It's the rarest. That's the one that you always look for, right? That's why we keep pulling the marketing slot machine every single month, is because, we probably get like one of those a month, and those are always super valuable. So we have the yes, I want to sell. We have the yes, I want to sell, but for too much money, right? Which are also not terrible lead, as long as it's like kind of close. Like if their offer is outrageous, then it's basically a no. We have the why are you calling me? Like how did you get my information? We have those pretty regularly as well, and those can actually come from some deals. Because generally they're kind of inquiring about who you are, that you build some trust, there's an opportunity there. And then there's the no, which can basically consist of take me off your mailing list, F you, go kill yourself, I would never sell to you, or just a polite not interested, right? A bunch of different iterations of that. But besides that, I mean, there's really not that many other ways people can reach out to you. Yeah. And, the yes and the no are kind of the easiest ones to determine. But those middle 2, that's where, like, the no's kind of make up the most of the calls you get in. But those middle ones make up the second group. And that's where the salesmanship comes in. And being able to navigate those and put in the times for those is the difference between the companies that make, a couple $100,000 a year, do a few deals, or the ones that make millions of dollars a year and close dozens or hundreds of deals.
Absolutely. And to your point, yeah, that's why we throw out thousands of dollars in marketing, because we're looking for those yes leads, knowing that stacks of those mailers are just going to go nowhere with people. You know, eventually. And what we do find is, like, I don't know, what's our like highest, like 18 times we mailed somebody and they finally called us.
I mean, that's what it was a while back. I mean, I think
higher now.
One of the recent ones you have is even higher, because we have some of these. I mean, the duplex that we bought in January, they first came into our system in the summer of 2020.
Wow, yeah. So
I mean, that's
it's consistency there, because they eventually might turn into a yes if they haven't even called you yet.
Yeah, for sure. But then, you know, that's also why it's so important to have that sales process as well, and not just be throwing things to the wind, and keeping things organized in a CRM. You know, like the one we use, Ari Simply. It's a really easy way to visually keep track of all of it. I know we've met people. I mean, even in our program, we have some people that have been doing this for a little while, and they still do everything in like a spreadsheet. And it's like, bro, no wonder you closed a few deals. You don't know what the hell's happening.
I don't know how you could do a follow-up system without like a task management system that's like pointing you, hey, call this person today. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I don't know. People try to figure it out, but having those systems in place for, managing that, and then also how regularly you're going to follow up and what those conversations are going to look like. That's all important stuff that we need to make sure you're keeping track of, right? It needs to be structured, because at the same time, if you're just calling people and you're not exactly moving things forward, eventually what's going to happen is, it's not going to sell to you. They're going to get friend zoned by these people, or you're going to start to piss them off. And that happens all the time. Where, I mean, we've talked to several sellers that they know exactly who we are when we call, and they're actually thrilled that we called them, but they are not going to sell the house, and you are now friends with them, and especially for the older people, it happens all the time.
Yep.
Friend
zone, man.
Yeah. Or alternatively, what happens is you have the sort of business-oriented people, or the people that don't really like to be pestered, and if you don't have a process for what following up with them looks like, they're just going to get pissed off, and they're not going to work with you anyway. So
yeah. Well, keep at it. Keep sending mail, and more leads come in. Like, that's all I think about, right? When we talk about all these sorts of things and saving your time, it's that abundance mindset again. Like, don't think every lead is the only lead you're going to get. Like, somehow magically we get more leads every week. Every week. Well,
for context, a good response rate for us on a marketing batch is usually like 1 to 1.5% on the high end. So that means if we're sending 5,000 of them, we should hopefully get about 50 to 75 calls. And that's calls. That's not even necessarily opportunities. The calls that come in, 60 to 70% of those are going to be no's. They're going to be the bottom of the sort of totem pole, right? Yep. But at the same time, you should still consider those a success, because by them saying no, if you're managing your data correctly and you're going back and you're removing them from your list, it should be saving you money next month.
Well, yeah, think about it. If you mail somebody 20 times in a period of time, whatever, and you have 1,000 no's, how much money is that? You know what I mean? That adds up.
$1,000 probably, or maybe even more.
Yeah. So.
And not even including the hours that you have to deal with managing all those if you're not clearing them out, just like responding to the inquiries and that sort of stuff. Especially if you're managing in a freaking spreadsheet and you have no idea if someone's actually called you before or not.
That's incredible. I could not imagine. We never started that way. We went right in with the CRM, and I'm glad we did, because knowing you and me, we would have struggled with trying to manage in this spreadsheet. Like, we could figure this out. We could do it. We would have wasted so much of our time.
So I mean, we jumped right in with that. But instead we cut corners on all the other important stuff. Like how to set aside money for taxes, and how to keep our business compliant with the state and the government. And now that's just a giant disaster for us, but that's fine. I mean, well, for you, I don't know what's still happening with it. It's your nightmare that you're trying.
I don't know. I'm waiting for somebody to call me.
Right. Well, to be fair, I guess one of the reasons it's so bad is because that was stuff that we, recognized as not a revenue generating activity, which also I would say is probably to our benefit that we did this, if you look at the big picture, because that stuff is easy enough to figure out down the line, and we were able to start pursuing revenue super early. Right. Whereas I feel like, and I might see this in our instant investor group, even though I try to push people towards revenue generating activities early, people are still getting fixated on like, well, what should my logo look like? What should my company website? It doesn't freaking matter.
Yeah.
It
doesn't matter. Should I show this to my lawyer? It's like, what? You have a lawyer?
I know.
We barely even have an accountant. Like, we just finally got an accountant.
Yeah, totally. And, well, and that's the thing is we shared our PSA with people, and several people asked me, it's like, oh, should I go over this with my lawyer, in my state or whatever? And I was like, yeah, probably. But at the same time, just start talking to leads. Just start getting those opportunities figured out. And then if there's something weird with your purchase and sale, here's what's going to happen. You're not going to get in trouble. Your title and escrow agent or your closing agent, whatever, is going to get your contractor. They're going to be like, what the hell is this? This doesn't work here. And you're going to go back to the seller and be like, oops, sorry, this contract isn't going to work for this transaction. Can you sign this other one instead? And if they're a good seller, it's going to be fine. And everyone, for some reason, people seem to think that if you don't have everything 100% dialed in from day one, that you're gonna like completely get yourself in major trouble down the line. Yeah. And here's the thing when it comes to all that sort of stuff, the only time you're gonna get in trouble is if you're negligent or you're malicious.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
If you're just like ignorant and you go into it, like there's, especially in real estate, the process is so freaking long and there's so many people that touch everything, it will get caught or fixed. And even if in the first transaction it doesn't and you somehow slip through, you just made some money. Then the second one, someone's going to come and be like, hey, we shouldn't have done that last time. On this next one, let's use this contract instead. And it's like, cool. It's fine.
Right. And you're going through a title and escrow company, so like if they screwed up, that's their liability, not yours.
Yeah, right? Exactly. that title insurance, everyone always says, what the hell is title insurance? It's
that's
so
what
when
it's for.
That's exactly what it's for.
Yeah.
So, when they do something silly, like accidentally send the seller the entire proceeds instead of paying off their mortgage.
Oh man, I forgot about that. That was hilarious.
Then the title company,
didn't they call us to ask us to try to get it back?
Yes.
We should have just said no. Have fun. See ya.
I know. Well, especially her. You want to dive into that story?
Oh man, no, not
it is
really.
Not really.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, we had this seller who was absolutely a flight risk.
Yeah.
Like she was just
massively.
A basket case. Yeah, just a basket case of a human being, and she was, she was making a good sum of money from selling this house, but obviously still had a mortgage on it. So anyway, she calls us. We funded the transaction. We wholesale this deal. We have our money that came in, and all of a sudden the seller calls us. She's like, "Hey, I just received, $260,000 in my account." She's like, "I'm pretty sure that it's supposed to be less than that. What do I do?" And we were like, okay, I don't know. So then we call the closing agent, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's not good. That shouldn't have happened.
Whoops.
We should have paid off her loan. Like, can you have her bring in a check?" And I was like, "No, you call her."
Yeah,
you figure
that's not
it
my
out.
job.
It's not my job at this point, especially because this lady was such a freaking nightmare to track down.
Yeah, she was.
And I'm like, I'm not going to spend, hours every single day trying to do that for your mess up.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, though, that is why they have title insurance, because for the thousands of transactions they do where that doesn't happen, they're making their money.
That's why they have lenders title insurance too. Right.
Yeah, exactly right. And then they would be paying that out of pocket, but either way, somebody in that department will be getting fired. I can guarantee that.
Yeah. So, one thing I've been wanting to chat about too is, like, I don't know if you were gone gallivanting, but we're at war, right? Like the world is at war at this point in time with Ukraine, economic war, right?
Oh.
What are you thinking? Like we
dive into this now.
Yeah.
Well,
no.
I was thinking like we're at war too, bro. We got weird sellers going on. We got one lady right now who has, like, as a household, they probably make over six figures, and they are not paying us rent.
Oh yeah, that is going to be war. I can't wait for that to play out. That's going to be a battle story in itself.
Oh yeah, I snipped those texts today, and I sent them to, like, we have this stupid mediation center now.
Oh yeah.
In the state, which exists purely because they're like, landlords are like too afraid to talk to the peasants that are their tenants. you know, because that's how a lot of people view their tenants, which we don't view them that way. But so they're like, what we do is we set up a neutral meeting to do it. And I basically snipped the text where she's like, if you treat us this way, it's like, you know, you want us to protect your investment and all this sort of bullshit.
Yeah.
So I sent that over to the mediation center and it's like, just so you know, this is what's happening. She's not going to pay rent. So,
Right.
But anyway,
That's going to be fun. I'm actually excited for that to all play. I mean, not excited, but excited, you know.
I kind of hope that they do something really bad so that we can legitimately sue somebody, especially because they have stuff to go after.
Yeah, that's true. They're not like a normal seller.
Yeah. And if they want to be that way, like I would take so much pride and joy in suing
get some
their
spite in there.
Oh, dude, I just hate the bullshit.
Yeah,
I hate it.
She's a criminal anyways, the way I look at it. So she deserves a little bit of punishment. We're treating her really well, honestly. She's just being her, thinking that she's smarter and can get away with things where it's like, no, let's just all be humans here. Like we're treating you as a human, you know.
Yeah.
But she turned into a tenant really quickly after being a homeowner. It's kind of funny how that transition happened so quickly.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the story. Is we bought the house. They were literally in active foreclosure. We bailed them out. They walked away with over $100,000 in profit instead of losing everything. And we were like, hey, cool, we'll give you 60 days to move out. You know, but we want you to pay rent to have hard money costs. They understood that. Paid 1 month at the start, and then they just stopped. And they're like, screw you, we're not paying you anything anymore. And for no real reason other than the fact that she does not like Judd for some reason.
Yeah.
So
it's not the first employee we've had that pissed somebody off. I mean, it just happens.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, she wants to speak to the manager. That's what she wants to do.
Of course,
she's a Karen.
I want your manager. Yeah.
Anyway, so back to
back to the point.
You want to talk world politics?
Well, no, I just there's so much chatter, and maybe this is like we could commit a big portion of an episode of this, but just your thoughts, like where that changes the outlook from, you know, where we were at in January. What we see like right now is obviously this inflation. Everybody's talking about inflation, gas, all this crap, and then like, you know, how does this affect the housing market? How does this affect the supply chain? They're talking about like food shortages, right? All this stuff, because I don't know, Russia and Ukraine make up 15% of the world's calories or some shit like that. How do you see that playing out as far as like American economy within the housing market? Are you worried?
I'm not worried at all about that. Like in its current state, I mean, if it escalates to something bigger, I don't think necessarily housing would take a big risk. I mean, I think people would kind of just probably stop buying and selling, so it would slow down, but we're expecting it to happen anyway. I don't think it would necessarily affect values because there's still a lot of people who have the desire to own a home, and I think that the people that own homes would just be a lot less likely to move, which is kind of where they're already at anyway. So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like I don't really see any crash in the housing market just because supply and demand. What I do see is things just rounding off, and I could see a rapid stall in appreciation where basically what happens, this is sort of my thought, is appreciation goes so low that, you know, the 30 or 40% appreciation whatever we've had slows to like 1% a year.
Yeah,
and
which
then
is typical, actually.
Well, then what ultimately happens is after a decade or something of that net, all of a sudden, real estate's appreciated exactly how it was supposed to, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I expect, but I'm not.
Yeah, I think
expert.
Yeah, I'm not an economy expert either, but I do play one on TV. So
on YouTube.
Yeah. I do get curious about the interest rates and how that will affect what we're doing, because, you know, we're raising interest rates, and I think that scares a lot of people. I mean, I have all these listings because, you know, I'm a full-time broker now, right? So I know I'm in the game. I hear it from the streets. But so many people are like, I have to buy a house because my rate lock comes up and rates are increasing after my rate lock expires. I'm like, I'll take your money, but that's just not a good way to go about it. But people get so concerned about rates going up and like what that actually means and how that actually trickles down. And when they're talking about the Fed raising the rates, yes, that has a correlation to your mortgage rate, but it's not like a direct correlation, right? I think that that they're going to increase, like we've talked about that at the beginning of this year. But as an investor, should that really affect you? I mean,
no, I mean, if you're buying your properties right, it shouldn't matter. If you're one of those chumps that's out there buying things on the market at retail price plus, it absolutely will affect you. But if you're, you have a marketing system like we do, or like we teach in our program, right? And you're buying things at huge discounts, it doesn't really matter because you make your money when you buy.
Yeah.
And your cash flow might go down, but if you just made $100,000 in equity on the deal and you're going to be pulling out a huge amount of cash when you refinance it, who cares if you're only cash flowing a couple $100 a month?
Right. And it spurred a thought in my mind too, so raising interest rates affects buyers' confidence as well, right? So if you're a full-time flipper and you're kind of skating on thin margins or skating on appreciation, you may want to think about switching over to some buy and hold assets because you don't have to worry about that exit price as much. And I've recently, this not where I started out as an investor, but recently flipped towards cash flow is great and we have lots of cash flowing properties, but that's actually not the end all be all. It's the asset itself and what the power of that asset can bring you in the future. And if you're investing on a 1 year timeline anyways, like that's short-term investing. And I don't think you should be doing a whole lot of short-term investing kind of in a market like we're in right now. Because I just think there's too many unknowns. Like personally, right? Like I'm not going to go and start day trading right now. Like that'd be terrible. I don't know shit about it. And it's probably just not a great time for me to do that, right? There's still day traders out there, but they're probably shitting their pants, right? It's probably hard to make money. So I just think if you look at it from the standpoint of owning an asset over that timeline, even if appreciation tightens up to 1 to 3% a year, which is kind of a typical average over the history of real estate, owning that asset is so much more powerful than that paycheck at the end of it. And so if you're holding a lot of properties that you're in flipping, it might be time to like start clearing some of those off, but then also look at that buy and hold, even if it cash flows break even after everything, right? Maybe you're only making $100, $200 a month after all your set asides and everything. That's okay. Because in 5 years, you're not going to give a shit because that $200 cash flow in 5 years is going to be $800, and you're going to have $100,000 you're going to pull out of that damn house when you refinance it, which is like literally exactly what I did. I just, on a couple of my properties, refinanced it, pulled out over $200,000, and I'm still cash flowing on them, not as heavy as I was, but I'm like, I know where my rent's going to be at in 2 years. I'm going to be almost back to where I was on cash flow. And now I have all this money to go reinvest elsewhere and redeploy that capital. And that's kind of the mindset I'm in this market is I'm not trying to hold cash, but I am trying to lock in some debt and redistribute that cash.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and a lot of people that hear that too, they'll say, well, you guys are in a position you can say that. And you're like, yeah, we are, because we took all the risks and we did all this stuff a number of years ago. Yep. But that, like, just because we're there now doesn't mean that somebody else can't be there in the next couple of years. You know,
I could do that again. I mean, I could do it again right now. We bought 2 properties this year. Give me 3 years, we're going to be there. It's just that short-term investing mindset and that overnight paycheck just doesn't really exist. Like, that's the exception. Yeah, you and I have had some big wins here and there, but it's like that is not what we invest for. Those are just like, oh, that was kind of cool. You know?
Yeah. Well, technically, it's not even really an investment at that point, right? It's a business. That's
Sure.
very different. You know, and when you have an investment, you know, you're taking that money and you are parking it somewhere, you need to be doing it on a longer term horizon. And,
Totally.
And the biggest thing you can do to escalate that is make a large portion of your return when you buy the property.
Right.
You know, it's like I don't
buy
know
it at a
what
discount.
Yeah. You know, I don't know what Tesla or whatever is at right now. Let's just say it's at $1,000, hypothetical. I literally have no idea. I follow 0 stocks. But, you know, let's say Tesla's at $1,000 and someone says, hey, I will give you 10 shares of Tesla stock right now that you could sell for $1,000 right at this moment. I will sell them to you for $600. Would you buy those? Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone would.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And a house works exactly the same way.
Yes.
You know, like if you have something that you can, you know, buy for that discounted price, the second that you buy it, you can sell it for retail price, but you're buying it at a discounted price the second that you buy it. That is getting a return on your money, even though it's on paper, even though you can't use that to immediately go and buy a Tesla. You know, you can turn that into debt. You can use to buy a Tesla, really cheap debt that's paid by a rental, right?
Yep.
You know, or you can sell it at that point if you want to, and then go and use that to, you know, get cash. And you have to pay tax, all that sort of stuff. But that that is like the biggest sort of thing that I think a lot of people discount. And I agree that if things do get weird on the exit and there are less buyers, that's going to be a big shift that a lot of people will benefit to start considering an option for themselves.
Absolutely, I agree.
So, cool. Well, right on. Well, all right. Well, we made it through the couple of tech issues. This gets kind of weird on people. I apologize. We cut in and out a couple of times there. But thanks for listening. You can follow me at Mike_Invest on Instagram. You can follow Dan at InvestorManDan. Go check out our Instant Investor program. It is a 12-week course that gives you the exact outline on how to build a business exactly like ours. It goes into marketing systems, sales systems, everything that we kind of touched on in this, as well as being in a community with other like-minded investors. We have had some pretty good Zoom calls over the past couple of weeks. The first group's getting ready to do all their marketing. I'm pretty pumped to see how that all goes. Yep. So go to instantinvestorprogram.com and you can book a call with me on there, see if you're a good fit. And besides that, all right, Dan, it's a moment of truth. You got your send-off.
I actually thought about it today, but I didn't really. I don't know. I did put some time and effort into this one, so you guys can beat me up. But this is Investor Man Dan, aka Dan Austin, signing off. Get out there, collect some keys, collect some fees. Until next week.
Oops, collect some keys, collect some fees. I don't know. Hopefully not too many fees, because people aren't paying rent on time. But,
right. Yeah. Right.
So, all right, get closer. You got something at least.
I added fees and keys together. They rhyme.
There you go.
I like that one, though. I think it's going to stick.
You're a wordsmith. You got a talent. All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. See y'all.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.